So, New Zealand rugby, Japan, and now MLR, and also France as well. We have the one and only Greg Cooper. Thank you for being on the show. We really appreciate it.
Welcome.
When I heard that you were coming to the States to coach this team, I was actually very excited because I think you find that perfect marriage between Northern Hemisphere rugby and Southern Hemisphere rugby, and you marry those two things very well. And I think for North America to have our own style of rugby, it's going to take that kind of marriage to be able to find new things and to be our own thing. So I was super stoked to see your name on the roster.
Yeah, well, I think the one thing about America and rugby, and like you say, it's well, the MLR is young, 6 years. So I'm looking at that, but I think the one thing about Americans and rugby is the physicality. You know, like look at American football, arguably the most physical game, in the world. It's brutal at times, and in rugby it's physical. You can't escape the fact that it's a physical game. And the other thing about Americans is there's a lot of athleticism in the athletes here. So the one thing missing is probably like we have in New Zealand at age 5, we have a rugby ball, and things become quite natural. And there's a lot of instinct involved in rugby, and you're playing in the backyard and you do all that sort of thing. We don't do that in America. So that's the one thing that's going to take a bit of extra time. You tend to get a lot of these players at a later stage in their lives. So, you might get a rugby player, someone converts to rugby at 18, 19, 20, 21. Whereas, they've already had a lot of rugby life in New Zealand and places like New Zealand.
Well, my sons are so incredibly excited about rugby, and I think that MLR actually adds a huge factor to that, because now we can take them, we can show them what the game is, and they can see it with their own homegrown heroes. I mean, Lance Williams is a great example of that, and my kids love him, and they want to go see him every week.
Yeah, so. And I think we're lucky here, Will. I mean, the rugby community is such a strong rugby community, and like I say, I've been around a lot of places. France is incredibly passionate about rugby. Japanese are passionate about rugby as well. There's a long history to rugby in Japan, and obviously in New Zealand. But this is a really passionate rugby community. We're getting some big crowds here, and we've got a game coming up, and we're expecting another sellout. So, that is exciting. So, I'm not surprised. I mean, the amount of people that I've met this year who are new to the game and new to the Warriors, and repeat, visit to the Warriors games. I think that's for me, it's really exciting.
I mean, I myself, I only found rugby at 22 years old when I moved to England.
Yeah.
So I'm right there with everybody else.
Well, that's the thing, I'm talking to people about rugby, and even I've got to be careful some of the things I say, because I take it for granted that the players, and most of the players will clearly understand rugby terminology that I will use, because it's international rugby terminology. But then I've got to realise that there are some, like yourself, new to the game. So, I've got one player on the side who's an absolute, I think, a beast of a man when it comes to the physical side of it. But in terms of the rugby understanding, he's young when it comes to that.
Well, and I was going to ask you this question because talking with the assistant coach for the Jazz, something that he talks about is that, well, we're no longer in player development. We're now a professional team, and so we want to actually teach schemes, teach these plays, teach this kind of stuff that you wouldn't normally get in a lower tier. But here in the MLR, you still have to think about developing players. How has that affected your head coaching and your ability to coach players?
Well, I think I'm probably fortunate that I've actually been to France, where I've actually had to look at how do I coach in a foreign country. How do I get my message across? So, whereas I'm in New Zealand, I go and talk to, one, I talk to players who really understand the game, but two is understand the language. Now in France, they clearly understand the game, but then as a teacher, I've got to try and get it through to them in the way I need to get it through. So Japan was exactly the same. So I had a little bit of opportunity to understand that I can't coach like I may have coached when things are simple. I've actually got to coach. I actually do have to coach simple in a way that I am teaching players about the game, even though they understand the language, the actual English language. I do sometimes have to take it to a level that is lower than I'm used to, but then again, I've had to teach differently in foreign speaking countries. So I think that in itself, while I came to America thinking, oh, it's going to be easy, I'm going to coach an English language. No, it's not. And it's, when I say it's not easy, it's actually quite exciting because you get it right and you get big growth in the players. And I think one of the things this year is the Utah Warriors, I think we've grown. It's taken a little while, but I think we've grown. And I think that's probably a lot of credit goes to the assistant coaches, Sean Davies and Robbie Abel. But we've made sure we've put in simplistic framework. I always say that the Warriors do the basics really well. We're exciting. When we try to be exciting, we look basic. And I think that's what it's like. We score these amazing tries, but we do it, and people think we're doing these exciting things. We're actually just doing the basics really well. And I think that's the one thing about American rugby, certainly us at the Warriors. Let's not overcomplicate things. So as a teacher, I've got to keep it relatively basic because I could be dealing with someone with an incredibly high rugby intellect here through knowledge, not talking about any other capacity, just through knowledge is here, and someone else whose rugby intellect is down here because they just don't have the knowledge.
Do you think that doing those basic things, that's the cure-all, or that's the magic pill to make sure that we're not playing to our competition? Instead, we're forcing our competition to play to us.
Oh, look, 100%. I think a game of rugby is about you've got to master the basics. The primary basis for me for rugby is the physical conditioning underpins everything. So you've got to be physically in great condition. If you're in physical condition, then you're going to allow your skills and your tactics to be maximised. And if you allow your physical condition, your skills and your tactics to be maximised, then the mental capacity to be able to handle the pressure becomes better because you become confident. So from my point of view is it is about mastering, doing the basics because it's a dynamic game. It happens so quickly. If you get complicated, then you probably are not. And if you haven't quite mastered the basics, then the complication creates confusion. And so I am a real believer in be fit, be strong, be in the best physical condition, master the basics, and do them with intensity and accuracy. And that just gives you great confidence.
How does that work into players' pre-game, pre-match workout routines that you want them to do? I mean, what kind of things do you encourage them to do the most?
I think the important thing is that we as coaches, and we not just as coaches, but as we have game strategy. We have attack strategists. We have players who are in the attack groups. We have players who are in the defence groups, who are in the set piece groups. So there's no point in me coming out there and saying, right, this is what we're doing. I give my observation, we get buy-in as a group. And as the week progresses, and it has to be in a simplistic form, it can't be overcomplicated. So every week, we will have 80-90% of our game strategy, whether it's attack, defence, will never change. It'll be that 10 or 20% that is changed to suit who we're playing against. For example, if it's an attack, we've got a fast line speed coming at us, then we have to operate slightly differently to a team that's holding, we call it controlling, because we've got to go more at them. So there'll be strategies around that. It might be certain teams defend really well going open the same way. So we have strategies around that. So the critical thing is you've got your core game that won't change, but then you've got your weekly strategies that are formulated not just with the coaching group, but it's with the strategy groups as well. And I've just had a presentation now where I call it the game drivers. So the number 9s and the number 10s, the captain, vice captain, I sit down with them and I say, so how are we playing this game? So my involvement is pretty heavy on Monday, Tuesday, gets less by Thursday. By Friday, I'm handing over the game to the players. The other one's out there. Of course, I'm wired up game day, and of course, I'm giving some simple instructions. But effectively, they tell me how we're playing the game. So we meet with them 15 minutes before the team meeting, and then they deliver. They say, right, they get up and say, this is how we're playing. I don't say anything.
Is there any time for a coach, and rugby is so different than American football, you can't be animated and on the sideline yelling at your players and all that kind of thing, but is there any time where you've gone to the sheds during the half that you have a specific memory of rallying the guys and boosting morale, or any kind of like major tweak that you've had to make in a game?
2 weeks ago against Dallas,
Okay.
I had a rant.
Did you?
I had a rant. We were very, very good. I'm not a ranter.
Okay.
So I would rather give a simple instruction at halftime. I would rather give calm instructions because the pressure of the game is already there. But we were absolutely outstanding for 20 minutes. We were textbook. We did everything we talked about. Then a couple of individuals decided to did things that were a little bit off script. So, I had a rant. And the second half we were actually very good attitude-wise. We just were a little bit inaccurate. So, generally speaking, I don't rant. I don't, but this one I thought was a time and place. Another example was a warm-up game. I think we were playing Seattle. Now, Seattle obviously, been going well. Seattle had lost one game to San Diego, probably didn't even deserve to lose that game. We were playing Seattle at home, and I know a couple of the staff said, our boys look as though their attitude's not right, because they were dropping the ball in the warm-up. Well, it wasn't that. It was, we were edgy. So what I did was just went in there, smiled at the guys and said, hey, look, had a good week? Yeah, we've had a good week. Okay, let's just relax and let's just, enjoy the occasion. So, a different tack. And I think probably through experience, I'm being able to pick up the moments where, hey, look, I need to do something that's probably different and it might be more animated versus, hey, look, this is a time to calm everyone down.
Perfect.
Who or what influences you the most in your approach to coaching the game? Look, well, to be straight up, I've probably forged my own path. I've had people in my life who I've looked at. When it comes to coaching, even as a player, when I was a player, I didn't look at a certain player and say, that's the player I want to be. Because I knew I had my physical strengths and my physical weaknesses and etc. So it was more about, as a player, I like that guy's kicking style. I like that guy's running style. Okay, I want a bit of that, I want a bit of that. When it comes to coaching, there's been a lot of trial and error. I got thrown into coaching professionally at a very, very young age. It was a difficult situation in terms of the team that I was with was going through some issues off the field. So I actually had to learn the hard way a little bit. There's been people in my life who, I'd look at and say, I admire the way they did things. So, no, it was more about, I suppose I've just forged my own path, and I've made, as we know in life, our failures are probably our greatest pathway to success, so long as we can negotiate and understand the learnings in those failures. So, I feel as though that when things don't go well, I bounce back quickly. One of the things I've had to learn is when things go well, to actually look for how I can be better rather than dwell on things going well. How did your fight with cancer at 15 shape you as a person and as a coach?
Look,
it has had an impact, or clearly had an impact. For me, I wasn't told, but my mother and father were told he's got 6 months to live. And in 6 months' time, you're going to, obviously, things are going to get pretty bad. So 8% chance of survival at the time. And that was generally associated with amputation, with the illness that I had, the bone cancer that I had, so you could remove the primary site. So mine was in the first rib. No chance of, obviously, they couldn't remove it because it makes nerves as well. So it made me pretty determined. I never once thought I was ever going to die. I didn't think like that. Maybe it's naive, maybe because I wasn't told I was going to die, but my parents were told. So I basically, from day one, even though as a youngster in New Zealand, all youngsters, rugby youngsters, would love to be an All Black, it just became a goal to be an All Black. And I was always determined before that, but I think I clearly got an extra boost. And there was some incredibly difficult times over the 2 years of chemotherapy and radiotherapy. And even post that, I got injuries post that basically were associated, a little bit was associated with some of the issues that I had to go through. So, but it created an absolute desire and resolve that, look, I want to be an All Black, and And I think to this day, I probably can look back on dark times that I might go through, and I can compare that against probably definitely the most significant dark time I've ever had.
It's an interesting answer, just because your daughter's health, your youngest daughter's health has also been rough at times, and you left your job at Stade Francais to go be with her. I think that shows a huge capacity of character that you have.
Well, I think for me, I had cancer, and while cancer is an absolutely devastating illness, and as we know, there can be cure and there can be some terrible situations where people pass away. Effectively, I was fortunate that I got through what I got through, and it never came back. So, this is many, many years ago. Whereas, my daughter's illness has been, I marvel at what she has gone through and what she at times continues to go through. And as I said, I look at her with incredible pride that, she's become she's a nurse, and the empathy and understanding that she has and what she puts back to people who are going through difficult times, I think can only, yes, of course, there's some wonderful nurses out there, but she's just got an edge, and that edge is an understanding that, she knows what it's like.
So it's an amazing attribute to have, to be able to help those that.
Oh, look, she is, she's gone. She went through a lot, as I said, and has continued to have difficult times. She's got a wonderful fiance, and life is, as I said, she might have something happen from time to time, but the ability of Alexandra to be able to take it all in and move forward, and as I said, in her working life, to be able to add incredible value, not just to the patient, but to the patient's family. I think, I'm sure it's been aided and enhanced by what she's been through, but it really speaks incredible volume for her.
What's your favorite rugby moment through your history career?
It would have to be my first test against France, my first international game. The French team were an incredible French team, going through a little bit of issues, but I'm up against a guy called Serge Blanco, who was probably one of the world's greatest ever players, and I'd looked at him. He was a bit slightly older than me, and I looked at him and thought, what an incredible player. But it was at the back of, I think I stopped treatment. I stopped treatment 3 years prior to that, and here I am in New Zealand, in Christchurch, up against this great French side. Mum and Dad in the stand. They'd been through it, they'd been through a lot. I used to get angry with myself that I was putting my family through a tough time, and I always thought I could handle it. I thought, this is not nice that they have to go through this. And to actually give something, almost feel as though I'm giving something back to them, was really special. So, no, it was, and this is really incredible. I talk about, you hear about deja vu. I used to dream, in my tough times, I'd dream about playing for the All Blacks. I'd get this visualization of me wearing the All Black rugby jersey, singing my national anthem with my teammates around me. I ran out to play against France, and honestly, it felt as though I'd been there so many. I felt as though that moment, this is familiar. I've been here. Obviously, I hadn't, but when I've just spent 2 days at the back of chemotherapy and feeling really, really bad, and then having to train, get food into me, having to train, having to build up to get knocked down again, all that sort of thing. And then getting this vision, getting this, you're going to play for the All Blacks, all this sort of stuff. And it happened time and time and time again, getting some food into me, going for a run. So all of that, and then actually experiencing that moment, it has to be the greatest moment in my rugby career.
I have a theory that deja vu is actually just your soul telling you you're exactly where you're supposed to be at.
Yeah, and look, and I've had many moments through my time, and I grew up a Catholic, and I had things that helped me through my treatment were clearly my family, clearly my friends, the doctors that I had total belief in, the medicine, all that sort of thing. And my religious beliefs, because when when there were times when I thought, oh, this isn't great or whatever, and the comfort of my religious beliefs was helped me through that. So, and that's a personal thing. I don't go out and talk to people about that. It was just a personal thing that I had, and so there's many factors, and there are a number of unexplained things for me in my life, and I don't know the answers to that. All I know is at certain times in my life there were things that helped me, or things that I can't explain.
What has been the most rewarding part of playing and then coaching?
Well, I think achieving personal goals is always a great thing. As a rugby player, you set yourself something. You go, you make the sacrifices. You have to make incredible sacrifices. Whether it's missing out on things that other people do, whether it's getting an injury and overcoming that injury, all of that. That is probably one of the most, to get to the end goal after you've sacrificed so much and put so much in. So
what do we got?
We got Coach Cooper
from the Warriors.
From now you're New Zealand, right?
Yes, I am.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's probably overcoming. It's probably overcoming, or getting to an end goal after so much has gone in. That's a personal thing. I used to get a lot of satisfaction as a player, and particularly through my circumstances, that giving, I don't know, some form of comfort back or whatever to family who had to give so much for me to be able to achieve that. And as a coach, probably the greatest thing I get as a coach is actually seeing the reward that the players get. Not just the players, the fans get, the people that employ me, the organisation. I'm loving at the moment that the Warriors are going through some good moments. Obviously, I want those moments to continue. But for me, I think that my greatest satisfaction is not titles, not the winning of the games. It's more about the feel-good factor that I see from those who maybe I can help allow that feel-good factor to happen. And as I said, it's the players making the feeling after a game, the effort they've put in, the selection for the USA Eagles squad, because the number of players have got that. That's a really good feel for me. Coming into work and seeing the marketing department, the ticket department, all of these people just happy with the result. That's what really actually gives me the biggest buzz, to be honest. Of course, I love to win the championship here, and that'll be great, because that'll be great again. I don't know if it's. Of course, I'll take personal satisfaction in that, but it's what it'll feel like on a Monday coming into the office and seeing the people who work so hard. Because I do my job. I love what I do, and I do my job, but I also fully aware that my job is probably seen out there as maybe a catalyst for a number of things, but it doesn't mean to say I work any harder than anyone else in this organisation. In fact, I know people that work a lot harder than I work, even though I try to do my best. So for me, it's that seeing the feel-good factor for others is a big part of my enjoyment in coaching.
Well, Coach Cooper, thank you so much again for being with us. I'm glad that we could help out and get you to practice, but you have a great day, and we'll have to do this again.
Well, absolutely my pleasure, and I'd enjoy doing that.